zombie knives. They've been in the media and on the television and newspapers, but what actually is a zombie knife, and why are they so evocative to street gangs? Well, they're cheap. They're scary looking, yes. But what's the difference between what looked to be black, what is an actual original zombie knife, or what's a movie prop? So if you want to join with me, I'll go through as many features as I can so you can understand the mess that this is all going on at the moment in the UK. The zombie knife phrase has been jumping all over the place, and whilst the shapes stay the same and the colours may change, the actual legal termination of what a zombie knife has had to adjust because they're still available and the kids are still buying it for their horrific acts on the street. Now, a machete is an outdoor practical tool, irrespective of whether or not it's got teeth on the back of it. They're a genuine practical tool, and they can be as simple and as basic as a tramontina. This is a bolo with a nice beechwood handle, and it could be any shape, any size, any blade orientation. They could be blackened, they could be shiny still, it doesn't matter. They're outdoor practical tools. And if you have a look now, you can see that even if it's black, it's whether or not you think it looks scary. They can be cheap, or like this one. This is a very expensive custom tool. The zombie knife ban came out years ago because the kids were using them in the streets. The actual knives themselves weren't much use, and the phrase zombie knife banded around when they came out was evocative of the violence that these kids were trying to impose on the street. So there ain't much use other than for playing in the backyard, slicing up some melons, and if you wanted to be Rick Grimes, that's about all the use they were. I used to know him as Andy from school, but you know, these things, all they're useful for is for backyard slashing. But against someone in a threatening manner, they're terrifying, and that's why they banned them. So the original zombie knife ban, if we go through this one as an example, Z Hunter, obviously the emblazoned moniker on the blade in lime green. They were classed as having a plain edge, they sometimes say a smooth edge. They would have a serrated edge, they call, but it's some form of teeth, but it's not actually serrations. And this is the one that they slipped up on. They said it had to contain or have on it a violent message. So zombie killer, zombie beheader. Unfortunately, all the manufacturers had to do was remove that violent message. Now you can see that this thing with the teeth on the back, that's a sawback, and even though it's not green, now it's red, there's no message on them, and so they slipped through. The police were seizing them. They were calling everything a zombie knife, but it's not. This one here, this is a movie prop from the Arnold film Predator. It's a movie prop. There's no serrations on it. There's no violent message on it. The Rambo knives from all the films, they have sawbacks. The Resident Evil bayonet, they have a sawback, but it's not zombie knives. These are movie prop knives for collectors and Comic-Con. Even the film The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones, that knife is a full production knife by Tops. It's the Tom Brown Tracker. It's a compound grind. You've got two different grinds and a saw back. It's great outdoors for notching and sawing through small sticks. The zombie knife came around as a ban. It hasn't worked because they just removed it, and so now we're on the verge of the second ban. So what they're trying to class it as now with the features are aggressive styling. Okay, yes, a smooth edge they say, but it's actually a plain edge. They say a serrated edge, and then they say more than one hole. Now even on this first photo that I randomly grabbed off of the internet, you can see that the top one has no holes, so this one wouldn't be classed as a zombie knife under the new legislation. You put holes in anything and then all of a sudden some people think it looks scary. It's just one of those things. They put more design. Even a simple thing like a Ruger 1022, you make it black, it becomes more scary. You make it military looking, now it's terrifying. It's the same gun. It's a Ruger 1022. You put holes in anything, it becomes, well, it's something different. So this knife here is a balisong. It's illegal. The serrations don't make it illegal. These knives are fantasy bowies. Serrations themselves go on the back of a knife or just at the front of the edge for cutting tough material. The notches on the top was called jimping. That's for grip, for a thumb. And if you go gently on the back of a knife, that's file work. None of these are a sawback, but they're calling them serrations. Again, it's a sawback. It's a practical feature on a knife outdoors. And even though the look of it looks like serrations, they're not. So going back to this one here, the Steel Eagle, remember him? It's a knockoff. They've mixed the compound grind of the tracker with what looks like a sawback but are teeth, and they've got themselves a cheap knife. These look scary, but they're for cheese. It's a cheese knife. It's for cutting through soft material. This terrifying looking thing is for stirring paint. So what we don't want are knives that'll get mixed up in these new terms. A zombie knife, from my point of view, is something that's made from cheap steel. It's cheap to produce. It's lasered out and made out of stainless, cheap steel. It's an impractical, aggressive design. It wouldn't be actually much use doing a proper task outdoors. Just an aggressive design. The sheath being cheap, that actually includes the injuries in casualty departments of people injuring themselves, and above all, a low cost. You're picking these things up for about £25 for a long, virtually slashy weapon to use out in the streets, and they're pretty hideous. None of the knife makers really are that impressed with them. We generally don't have them. We like practical tools. It's got a hole, but this penknife is useful. A sawback machete is useful. This army one has a very strong, sturdy, safe sheath. And an M9 bayonet, well, it's good outdoors. And again, the sheath is sturdy, protects the knife and you. None of these, you can see, have the features of what a zombie knife is. And one of them is the sheath itself. Anything to do with any of these cheap, mass-produced knives with a sheath that's just not fit for purpose kind of makes it a zombie knife. Again, evocative design, cheap sheath. Holes in the blade, not really practical, cheap sheath. The name fighting or combat added to any blade does not make it a zombie knife. This is a K-Bar USMC fighting knife. The Sykes Fairbairn Commander knife, it's a fighting knife, but they're for collectors. They're very expensive. Whether it's got two edges or not, or a sawback or not, these knives themselves are not. And when you get a tool you love, you generally invest in making another sheath. So a custom leather sheath on a machete, it could cost you £100 or hours to make, or a long US Army one with pouches on, because you believe in the tool. But the serrations are not what makes this knife look scary. These are simply gym pins. All this is for decorative, to show that the maker has skill, and a little area on the top to put your thumb to add more purchase when you're using it. The holes don't really add anything. The gym pin doesn't add anything other than a more interesting look. It's simply a more interesting blade to look at. It's a balisong. It's illegal to own. The serrations are irrelevant. That's a cheese knife. It's to cut through soft material. That's hideous. Chuck it away. Surrender bin the thing. That's a movie prop knife from Predator. That's a knockoff of a Book of Eli. Get rid of it. That's a Swiss Army knife with a cheese knife. Practical tool. Not a zombie knife at the moment, but will be under the legislation. Mostly zombie knives apart from the top one, because it ain't got holes. That's an army survival knife. Practical. That's a Boosie custom. The hole is just a design feature. These are fantasy bowies, just junk drawer stuff. That's not a knife. This is a knife. This obviously is a custom version of Crocodile Dundee's knife with a very expensive leather sheath as well. And finally, and this is a Jackclaw. It's a bushcraft knife. This is a practical work of art. 10 years in the making for skill and knowledge, and it's for wood carving and prepping your food whilst you're outdoors and enjoying yourself. So thanks for joining me. I hope this has been of help to you. Support your local makers, and let's get these rubbish knives off the street. They're zombie knives. Thank you.